You're listening to River West Radio on WXRW 104.1 FM here in the Cream City of Milwaukee. Active Culture is brought to you in part by Lost World of Wonders. Since 1996, Lost World of Wonders has carried mainstream and alternative comics, action figures, trade paperbacks, manga, Gundam, and games. Located at 6913 West Oklahoma Avenue, more information is available by going online to lostwonders.com. Hello again, Milwaukee. How the hell are you? Will LeDuc here with you, providing yet another privileged peek behind the cheddar curtain of bliss that is Active Culture here on River West Radio. We are broadcasting to you locally on WXRW 104.1 FM here in Milwaukee, while simultaneously streaming live globally at our website, riverwestradio.com. And since every broadcast becomes a podcast, you can find this episode and over 385 others at that aforementioned website, my friends, riverwestradio.com. yes, asking the musical question, is you is or is you ain't my baby. Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to the show that just never seems to end. We opened the show with a sprightly version of that classic 1930s tune, Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby. That was featuring Bart Simulis on the bass and our featured guest on the harp. My guest today is a classically trained, yet jazz-influenced harpist extraordinaire. It's Lori Andrews. Let's delve right into this archive interview from the files of Active Culture. It's the talk of the town, my friends, and you're only going to find it here, Active Culture, River West Radio. Will LeDuc for Active Culture, and we are once again on assignment, coming to you from within our very own lair here at River West Studios, Studio C. We're here to engage once again in the lively art of conversation with yet another brilliant, innovative musician who is forging her own path in the music world. She is a skilled and gifted practitioner of the harp, and my guest today is striving to rescue her instrument from the quaint oblivion of Renaissance fair traditional music and dragging the harp kicking and screaming into the 21st century and beyond. She has performed in front of kings and queens, presidents and jazz royalty alike, and we here at Active Culture are dead chuffed to welcome Lori Andrews to the program. Hello, Lori, and thank you for giving up a part of your oh-so-busy schedule to have this wee chat with us here on Active Culture.
There is nothing I could say that would be better than that amazing introduction. I'm just laughing, thinking, gosh, is he talking about me? Thank you, Will. So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Not at all. Now, it says here you're originally from Philadelphia. What can you tell our listeners about your hometown, the city of brotherly love?
Oh, no, it's the city of brotherly shove. No, I didn't just say that. No, it's the city of great cheesesteaks. Every time I go back, I gain between 5 and 8 pounds. So I try not to go back too often. I live in Los Angeles now. So. Sure. Yeah, I've been out here about 35 years, and I loved growing up in Philly. But, you know, it was time to leave, and it was time to, you know, push out of the tree and, you know, fall a little and stumble and then have a good time in life. So that's where I am now. So
were you seeking pastures anew when you went out to L.A., more opportunities?
Yeah, I felt as though when I went to Temple University, and I just thought that when I graduated from Temple, that I immediately got a job in Atlantic City. Very cool, an hour and a half from the parents, you know, just really cool, and the best gig ever. So I was at Caesars Atlantic City for about 6 years. And then when Caesars had changed a lot, they had gone a lot to tracks, and I was in the fine restaurant, and then the restaurant had closed, and it was time to make a decision. And I really thought that being a jazz harpist at that time, that my choices would be New York or LA. And I thought, there is no way I am pushing a harp around New York. So I'm going to LA. And I didn't think I had a choice, and it turned out it was the best choice. So.
Oh, so you saw serendipity in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when you do go home to Philly, do you get like the hero's welcome, or is it more a case of like the New Testament where the prophet is never truly appreciated in their own hometown?
Oh, never appreciated in my own hometown. No, my mother hates jazz. Although I will say, but this never changed. It just never changed. When we go out as a family, we all there'll be 13 of us will pile in one car, because that's just the Italian way to do it. Mm-hmm. We travel together or not at all. I'll stand up and say, hey, I want to go out for ice cream, and 13 people get in the car and we all go out for ice cream. So that is what I love about my family. We're very close.
And sooner or later, somebody's going to say, are we there yet? Are we there yet?
That's right. That's right. And then I always say, yes, get out. As we're rolling down the 95.
Yeah, at times like that, you wish you had an ejector seat, sure.
Oh, yeah. I used to have an ejector button in my old, I had a 4Runner, and I just put this ejector button in it with a little thing on the bottom that said ejector. It was so fun. And people would get in and they looked a little nervous, and I thought, hey, just don't mess with me. And we won't have to see. We won't have to see if it works.
Nobody's going to get hurt here if you just play ball.
Let's try to keep it that way.
Now, let me hit you with what I like to call the Barbara Walters puff piece question here. Was a life in music something that was preordained for you, like a genetic imperative, or something you just kind of fell into more casually?
Absolutely genetic. My dad was a musician. His dad was a musician. I started piano at 6, harp at 14, graduated high school, went into college, and majored in music education, harp performance, and classical piano performance. So it was all classical up until that point. So when I got that job in Atlantic City, it really changed things for me because it wasn't a classical music gig. It was more top 40 and pop. And so the transition for me was really easy. And it's just always been music. I was one of those people that everybody just knew would end up, and even in high school, it was like, she's going to be the one that will probably stick with her instrument. And I did, and I love it.
Now, was this a case in Atlantic City of just completely having to change your repertoire on the spot? Or did you have some inkling of what was going on and you were able to adjust?
Well, let me tell you what my definition of the spot is. When someone hands you $100 chip. On the spot. I learned that too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it became a Frank Sinatra and Natalie Cole and just all, it was actually really fun. And I very rarely got asked to play classical. And as a result, I dropped the classical pretty quickly from my transition from college to professional playing. And the cool thing too was because I was by myself, I was at a restaurant called the Palm Court Restaurant at Caesars in Atlantic City. And it was one of those occasions where I just had free reign. And I developed a technique that made playing solo harp really fun. I started slapping the bass. So I would for your musicians out there, just to give an example, I would play on 1, slap on 2, my whole fist, everything, my whole palm would go against the string. So it would create a percussive sound. Play on 3, slap on 4. So it really gave me a great rhythm to set up for swing and Latin. And I was doing mostly pop at that time. And then it was probably 5 years into that gig where they suggested that I work in the lounge playing jazz. And, it's funny, some of I always laugh when I do workshops, I tell people that a lot of decisions in my life were made for me and not by me. I was called into the office of the entertainment office at Caesars, and they said, hey, we're thinking you should go into the lounge and play jazz with a saxophone player. And I said, that sounds great. And I remember walking down this very long, dark hall after that door closed behind me, and I'm thinking, how in the hell do you play jazz on the harp? And, it was everything. So I was thrown into it, and I absolutely loved it.
So was this just a case of you picking like a popular tune that you knew of from jazz and just kind of extemporizing then on the harp?
Actually, I had to learn a whole different repertoire. The pop stuff, I have really great ears. The pop stuff I could pick up. If someone were to ask me for a request, I could probably pull out about 75% of the request by ear, or at least get enough out to that they would be happy. So I was really good with that. The jazz, I had to learn the structure of jazz, how it worked, soloing. So I remember the sax player, it was a female, her name was Susan. She came over my house to, we were going to rehearse and try to get up a repertoire because now we were playing in the lounge. Mm-hmm. She was probably about 5 feet tall, and she played all the saxes plus flute. So when she played Barry sax, it was down to her ankles. It was hysterical. But she taught me, this is because I had really good rhythm. That's what I brought to the table. So the rhythm was strong. I just had to learn my way around jazz. Mm-hmm. So first you play the head as it's written, then everybody kind of solos around the melody as if maybe they had written it in a different way. Mm-hmm. Then you come back and play the head again from the top up to the bottom, and you end, so I would be, working on just how to maneuver, and we'd be playing in front of people, and Susan would just stop playing, and I'd look at her with panic in my eyes, and out of the corner of my mouth I'd say, what are you doing? And she'd say, time for your solo. Right. And that's kind of how I learned. So
yeah, it sounds like sink or swim time for you.
That's right. I got thrown in the swimming pool. That's right. And it just worked for me. And so when I moved out to LA, I started working with sax, bass, and drums, and that was my band. And we started working right away, and we started recording right away, and we have 8 CDs, and that just became my love. And I very rarely get to play classical anymore. And the truth is, I'm not the classical harpist anymore. Those chops are gone. I have different chops, and when I'm asked to play something really technically difficult in a classical, written way, I struggle. I really want to just jam. That's just my thing. I just want to jam.
Now, let's get back into the childhood a little bit here. You say you started on piano at 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a good grounding then with the piano then? Did it prepare you for the other instruments that you might have been interested in down the line?
That's a great question. People don't realize that the harp and piano are very similar. You might think that, but the music is very similar. The very big difference between harp and any other instrument is that the black notes of piano, the sharps and flats, are actually 7 pedals on the floor of the harp. I'm moving my feet constantly. I have 3 pedals on the left, 4 pedals on the right. So coming to the harp, having had I had about 7, 8 years of classical piano behind me, I read music beautifully. That wasn't so I could really concentrate on figuring out the feet work, because that was the hardest thing. So it was a really great transition, but it was different because of the pedals. That's another thing. I haven't played piano in 30 years since I graduated, and I don't think I could anymore, because I don't think sharps and flats, as a piano player would. They're in my feet. It's just really strange. So, now you can picture that each of my strings on the harp has 3 different pitches depending on where I put the pedal. So it's a little bit different.
So it's not the old, it's like riding a bike analogy. That's just not going to work, right? This is something like if you wanted to get back into piano, you'd have to kind of work at it to get back to, getting your chops back.
And honestly, being in LA and hearing all these great piano players, I wouldn't even try. You're right. I just wouldn't even try. And I absolutely love the harp anyway. It's so different. It just suits me.
Well,
So
let me ask you that, because you say at 14 you made this momentous decision to get away from piano and move to harp. What was the motivating factor? Because it can't be ease of transport, because as hard as it is lugging a piano, it's got to be that much harder with a harp.
and it can't be because my first car was a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah, even a sunroof won't cut it.
It's so funny you ask, because when I went into high school, it was a high school in Philadelphia. It was an all-girls Catholic high school. They had the harp, and the nuns told me that that's the instrument they were going to place for me, put me in place with. And I never thought of it. I was going to be happy with anything, because I knew that, I was going to go in music. Whatever it was they were going to give me, I was going to be happy with. So they saw the history. They saw the transition. I didn't know. So I always say the nuns made me do it, But I remember coming home and my mom said, "So what did you get?" And I said, "I got the harp." And she said, "Oh, the harp. Did you tell her we already have a set of drums?" Because in her mind, it was like cha-ching, which, yeah, she's right, cha-ching. So it was heavy and expensive, and I needed now a station wagon. So, them's the breaks.
And your parents were on board, right? They were completely supportive of you all the way down the line, right?
Totally supportive. My brothers, not so much. They had instructions that when Lori wanted to practice, they had to shut off Speed Racer.
Oh.
On the TV. My brother still to this day says, "You made me shut off Speed Racer when I was a kid."
Those are wounds that never go away either.
No, they don't go away ever. It'll probably be on my tombstone, thanks to my brothers. Somehow they'll get it in there.
Now, they were supportive of you, but did you get what I like to call the, "Well, that's nice, honey, but maybe you should have something to fall back on" speech?
Okay, I can tell you've been doing this for a long time. You are so intuitive. Yes, mothers always say, "But how are you going to work?" And therefore, you're going to take music education, which is what I did. You're absolutely right. I taught a little bit. I did a little bit of substitute teaching out of college, but then Caesars called, and that was the end of that. And I was so happy because playing live for me, and that's what I've been doing my whole life, it's just the most rewarding, unbelievable experience. To play, put it out there, and at that moment, you're getting people's response. They're responding to you. And the give and take is just amazing. So, I don't know if I would have been a good teacher. I never had that opportunity really, but I'm so glad that, my life worked out the way it did.
Well, I'll tell you what, as a parent, I've given that speech. As a kid, I was given that speech. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the concept. Now,
okay.
Looking over your bio, it was peppered with accolades from, in the form of quotes, that is, from one of, the most famous people in music, the chairman of the board himself. So my question to you is, in the words of that eminent 20th century philosopher, Francis Albert Sinatra, this jazz harp, how did this whole Megillah get started?
Oh, that's funny. Well, I do have a Frank Sinatra story.
Hit me.
So I had just moved out to LA. And I was doing some errands in the morning. I think I was in LA about 2 weeks. And I came home in the morning, like about 10:30, to a frantic phone call from an agency I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but I could tell that I was not the first or the 20th or the 40th harpist that they called. Please call me back right away. It's about a job tonight. It's an emergency. So I called this agent back, and they said, are you available tonight to do a gig in Palm Springs? And I said, I don't really know where Palm Springs is, which it's 2.5 hours east of LA. Mm-hmm. And they said, it doesn't matter. I'm sending you directions. Get in your car. Don't take a shower. Throw your harp in. Take a dress. Go. I said, okay. So that's what I did. So I drove out to Palm Springs, and I ended up in this beautiful community. And I knock on this woman's door, and just this huge, humongous home on a golf course. And she said, oh, come in. I'm so glad you're here. And I said, thanks for having me. Would you mind if I just used your powder room to freshen up? So I remember I'm in the powder room, and I'm putting on a little bit of makeup and some deodorant, thinking, they told me not to take a shower,
Right.
So I'm playing. As you walk in the door, the first thing you see is a fireplace that's between the foyer and the living room. And then if you go around the fireplace on each side are 2 steps down into the living room. So she had me playing on the top step of the right side of the fireplace, so people could enter and go near up, around me or to the other side of the fireplace. So I'm sitting there playing, and as I'm playing, Frank Sinatra, Lee Iacocca, Dinah Shore, Diane Carroll. Oh my gosh, who else walked in? All I kept doing was smelling my armpits to make sure I was okay. And I'm thinking, how could they let me do this and not take a shower? President Ford, Betty Ford. Oh my gosh, I know there's more right now. I'm just spacing it. It was just, of course, the most exciting gig ever.
But tough room, though.
I know, tough room. Well, they were all practicing their golf swings in the living room, and I was just like, I was just overwhelmed. So when Frank was leaving, he came up and he kissed the top of my head as I was playing, and he said, I hear what you're doing, and I really dig it. And he left, and I cried.
Oh, yeah, because let's face it.
I think I'm gonna love it here.
That's gotta be manna from heaven,
Oh, I called my dad the next day, and we were all just crying. I just couldn't believe. And it's like, welcome to LA. I'd been here 2 weeks, right? And it's like, I'm really gonna like it here. So.
Oh yeah, and he kisses you on the forehead. It's a benediction.
I know, and you know what? It's a shame I didn't take a shower that day, because I haven't washed my hair since. 30 years later, at least I could have had one 30 years ago, but no, I wasn't allowed.
So, when it gets down to it, the chairman was just like anybody else, right? He showed his appreciation.
He was, and I was just overwhelmed. That was really that. I've had many cool things happen to me in the years I've been in LA. That was the coolest.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you compose your own music, or is it just a case of picking something out and doing an arrangement?
No, I do compose. I did a lot of traveling. I've backpacked through about 25, 26 countries through Central America, South America, 17 countries in Europe. And I've written a lot of tunes about those travels, mostly the South America and Central America, a lot of Latin stuff. And, and then I just kind of, I met my husband, who is a jazz bass player, and he just seemed to be a better writer than I was. And I didn't have the patience to sit. So I just let him write for us. And, having knowledge of the harp and what can be done and what can't be done for him. And, of course, for me, the appreciation of that was really great. So he wrote really cool jazz tunes for our quartet that we recorded. And I always liked his stuff better. But my first two CDs were all my original tunes. So, and we do still play them, and of course they're great memories too because of my travels. Brings back memories.
Well, let me ask you this, because, I was going to get into discography a little bit later on, but now that you've opened this can of worms, let's go for it. When you look back on your first couple of efforts, and like you say, it's been 7 or 8 since then, what do you, when you look at, the CDs from back then, is it like a snapshot in time for you where you can say, oh, okay, I remember this is where my head was at? Or is it more like a high school yearbook photo where you think, oh my God, what was I thinking?
It's funny. Every time I recorded everything I have recorded, when I go back and listen, all I hear are what I should have done, could have done, would have done. I'm not going to call them mistakes because I don't necessarily think they were mistakes. But of course, as you grow as a musician, you know that you were not capable of playing that then. But there's just some things I just think, I don't know what I was thinking when I played that. So yeah, I don't like to listen so much to my CDs. Is that really bad?
No, but does that make you, in your book, a perfectionist?
Yeah, maybe. Or like I said, it's just about growing since then.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a question I get asked all the time is, how long did it take you to learn to play the harp? Which I never understood the question, because obviously any profession, you're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
But the thought of me calling it a certain date and saying, that's it, I've learned to play the harp, it's just not going to work that way. So it's always an ongoing process, especially in the arts. Your ears are always opening. Your experiences are always broadening. You're going somewhere you've never been, and it just translates into music. So it was just an odd question, to answer for me.
Well, did you ever have what I like to call the eureka moment, where you started hitting some notes on that harp and you thought, wow, this is it. I found my life's mission here?
I did. That actually was back in Atlantic City with the jazz and the slap bass. I got really noted for in the harp world. So when I get asked to teach workshops, it's to teach harpists how to swing, more or less, to set up a groove. Harpists are it's not for everybody. Harpists really, like I said, most harpists are very classically oriented and they're very music oriented, reading music. And that's not my style anymore. So, but I do want harpists to experience stepping out of the box. So for me, I think that eureka moment was that a harp can swing even by itself with this little bit of a percussive sound in the bass. So that really worked for me. It was like, you know what? This is my life. This is going to be cool.
Well, that's great. Now, when you're composing or maybe just arranging, do you have what's called a set process, or is it different for you every time?
It's different every time. One thing I might start off with is a style. I really enjoy Latin music, but I might sit down and say, you know what? I think I need to write. I love jazz waltzes. Maybe I'll write a jazz waltz today, or a swing tune. Maybe I need to do a swing tune, or maybe let's get a little funky today. So that I kind of think about style first. And then I think of a chord progression that maybe I just heard in my head, or heard Bill Evans, when I was listening to his CD recently and heard something that he did, and I would I would think that speaks to me. Let me go with that kind of a vibe or a sequence of, or a chord progression, and see what comes out.
Now, what part of the creative process finds you in your wheelhouse? Is it, the selecting and the arranging of tunes and getting them, in the studio and getting them out there, or is it taking those tunes out on the road testing them, and getting that, that high, that instant gratification response from the audience?
It's the road thing. I really love playing live, and it gives us an opportunity to hone in on stuff that would not necessarily have translated the first time we went into the studio. The first CD I made, which is called Suspended, that's the tune that I wrote about my travels to Central America. When I first, I had put a band together, and we ended up with a gig for 6 years in Marina del Rey. Anyone who is from the Los Angeles area, Marina del Rey, it was Wednesdays and Thursdays, my full band. It was a quartet. And as I was writing these songs, I never really thought about recording them, because this was many, many years ago. And recording actually is so much easier now because we have a studio in the house. But then it was just a big deal, and it was expensive, and the equipment and the studio time and the engineer. So I just wasn't thinking that route. Hey, guys, I wrote this tune. Let's see what we can make of it. Well, within about 8 months of playing that gig, all of a sudden, these tunes just came together like nobody's business. And we went in and recorded Suspended in one day. It was 13 tunes, 14 tunes. I can't even remember. It laid down perfectly, because we've been playing them 2 days a week. We were catching things. We were hearing each other. We knew where we wanted to go. So I like the road test. That works for me. Now, in this day of recording at home, when people just send you tracks, it's, there's an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that you get to record on anybody's CD all around the world, but the disadvantage is you're not looking at them face to face and playing with them. So I kind of miss the old style. But on the other hand, it's opened up a world where if you want harp on your CD, you can email me and we can get this done, and you live in Sweden, so it's cool. So
yeah. We were talking before about, the internet and how tricky it is, like to set Skype up and stuff like that. And yeah, we like to kvetch about it, but at the same time, it's kind of churlish to complain, because it is bringing the world to us.
Right.
In a way that wasn't available before.
Think about looking at YouTube, and like for myself, when I hear other harpists and other bands, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the competition has gotten so incredibly what do I want to say? It's just out of control, that you really need to bring your A game even at a young age now, because these kids are just learning from the internet. We didn't have that, we had to, well, I don't know. I didn't even know if there was another jazz harpist when I started playing jazz harp. And it turns out there was. Many years ago, Dorothy Ashby, some of your listeners may have heard of her. She put jazz harp on the map. She's since long passed away. But she was, Alice Coltrane. Coltrane's wife was a jazz harpist, kind of very avant-garde. So, and I didn't even know that back then, because we didn't have the connections that we have now. The world is very small thanks to the internet.
Sure. Like the Irish say, the world's the size of an orange now. And it's basically true. Yeah. And like you say, because when I first heard some of your music, and I was thinking, wow, she's got to be a trailblazer, and I started to look into it. No, it's been out there. But you're someone that has, you've joined this, this trail of pioneers in getting this, this sound out there.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Do you consider yourself part of a legacy then,
I kind of do, and it's not necessarily a legacy of being the only one, but I feel as though harpists aren't gravitating towards stepping out of the box and trying.
Hello? Hello? Are you there? Hello?
Go.
One of the things I'm curious about is what is it like for you to travel with your instrument?
Well, let's say I had to put a sunroof in my Volkswagen Bug. No, I'm kidding. Actually, um, I usually borrow harps on the road. And I've been really lucky that if I'm traveling to, say, Chicago, I can get in touch with a harpist in Chicago, and they'll ask me if I would do a workshop, and they would give me a harp. So we do a nice little trade there. So I've been just really fortunate that everywhere I go, I don't have to bring my harp. So that worked. That's kind of good now. And a lot more harpists have electric harps, which is what I'm using, is a harp that has a pickup on every string. Actually, it's partially acoustic and all electric. So more and more harpists have been purchasing the electric harps, which was not the case when I started 30 years ago. I was the only one that owned 3 electric harps. It just wasn't popular, and I loved my electric harp. So
Did you, was it like you were getting resistance from the purists back then?
absolutely, yeah.
And again, this isn't like you're trying to cheapen your sound. You're just trying to make things a little more convenient for you, right?
Exactly. I understand that I lost a bit of quality of that rich, beautiful acoustic instrument, but I'm playing with drums. So either way, you were going to lose me completely if I didn't have any amplification, or I was going to I could put a pickup in there and it wouldn't be quite as clean. I might have pockets of good and pockets of not so good. But having the electronics on every single string just made it that much cleaner, and I could just turn it up to 11.
uh, I'm always welcoming a Spinal Tap reference.
I love Spinal Tap, absolutely.
Now, many of the musicians I've interviewed in the past have spoken of an almost mystical, like an emotional, symbiotic relationship that they share with their instrument. And I'm just wondering if you're one of those people who feels that way, like it's, when you're playing, like it's almost become an extension of you.
Absolutely. Actually, you just reminded me of something that I haven't had that experience in a while, and that's something I kind of need to reconnect with. I used to really love watching my fingers play the harp. There was just something about just the sound of plucking, the visual and the audio that I love my instrument. And there's us also, I always heard, I don't have kids, but I always heard that when you're pregnant, the baby can feel the vibrations of the soundboard against the stomach. So whenever I would play an event or a gig and there was a pregnant woman, I would ask her if she would like to try the harp. And in many cases, she could feel the baby move. So that was very moving to me. So the harp is a really cool, it's not just a visual, it's not just audio, it's visual too. I mean, it's a really pretty instrument. I totally am in love with my instrument.
Well, let me ask you this. What's the longest you've had to go without being able to play it? Maybe you might have injured a wrist or something.
When I was in Atlantic City, I had some carpal tunnel issues. I had some shoulder problems, but really, knock on wood, here's some wood. I don't know if you heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been okay. Been pretty good. And I've also, I've had the, great fortune of doing a lot of traveling, playing in different countries, Japan and Malaysia and Hong Kong. I'm just really lucky. I've been okay. So.
Now, what do you do in those situations when your muse has just failed you completely? I mean, we call it writer's block, but for you, what do you do how do you deal with a creative block?
It's funny. Sometimes my best playing is when I've actually been away from the instrument for, say, a week. I haven't played in a week, maybe even 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I sit down and there's a new creative flow. But sometimes I can get more in a rut when I'm working too much. It becomes rote. And rote isn't bad. I'm not complaining, especially in jazz, where it's never going to be the same way twice anyway. I'm just saying that maybe my licks could use a little spiffing up after a while, and then just stepping away for a minute, I'll come back with a whole refreshed, listening experience or whatever. I love to walk and just listen to jazz. And then when I come back, I can feel that something's changed or I just have a new approach to an old tune.
Now, when you've got this block going on, can you then, like I say, some of my other interview subjects, can you like turn on a different part of your brain? Like maybe go to an art museum for a while, or like you said, go listen to somebody else's jazz. And do you find that helps you? Like you say, you can stay away from the instrument and that'll help cleanse your palate and clear the boards. But can you also like maybe apply that to other forms of art?
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, you know what? It's interesting because thinking of an art gallery. I don't know that I've done that. What I have done is I would go out and listen to a really great band in the evenings, and then I would get really inspired to come back and play. To just even maybe they played a tune I want to play. Maybe they just played a groove I want to emulate. It's just I love hearing other people's take on music. And then I'm fortunate enough to come back and play it on the harp.
Oh, cool. Now, who would you say are your musical influences then?
Well, I tend to, Marcus Miller is just my guru for the slap bass. It was because of him that I started slapping bass at all. And I was listening to him and Bob James and Bill Evans, and I like some of the mainstream guys, like Coltrane. I would listen, but a lot of like a bebop style on the harp is a little bit challenging, because if you figure that all my sharps and flats are in my feet, that's all very chromatic work that they're doing on their instruments, and it's almost, some of it is a bit impossible on the harp. So I have to adapt as well. So I just try to do the best I can with the influences that I have.
Now, I've got I had a guest on a few months back, and she's the first of many that have been experimenting with looping while they're in performance. And have you ever thought of maybe utilizing that as a tool?
I did. When I 30 years ago, the first tune I ever wrote was more of I used a delay, and I looped a rhythmic pattern that I would kick on and off during the course of the tune. So of course now it's called looping, and I love this, the sound of looping through the entire tune. I have not really gotten into that. I've gotten a little bit more just, I don't know. You know what? You just gave me my first homework. I'm gonna go back to that delay and some looping and see what I can come up with.
Okay, all right, sounds cool. What do you know? I've inspired genius for the day. Well,
thank God you called.
Well, one of the things I was curious about in reading the bio is how did you get involved in doing some film scoring? How did that come about?
Actually, not scoring. I'm actually on camera with all those movies and TV shows. Wow. So that whole I've had a really fun time. So I think I sent you a picture of me giving Clint Eastwood a harp lesson. That was on the set of In the Line of Fire.
Wow.
And then I did Bird, which is the the movie that he produced about Charlie Parker, which was really cool.
Forrest Whitaker.
And yes, Forrest Whitaker, and which he did a great job.
Yes.
And Mambo Kings, and there's probably been 20 TV shows. It's always been on camera. So there's been occasions where I played live, but most of the time I may have pre-recorded and then played to my record, or they had a pre-record that they wanted me to fake to. So all those TV shows I was always on camera with.
And you're not just performing then, my dear. You're acting.
Oh, hey. Yes, I was getting ready for my close-up today. It's a shame we don't have video. Now, it's funny because just recently, we were talking about the ability to record at home now. I'm getting a lot of calls to do harp on people's CDs. However, we have a lot of composers that are reaching out. And right now, my husband, acoustic bass, Bart Simolis, he's been He's the engineer and the bass player for me. We're getting a lot of calls for harp and bass. We're working on a Steven Spielberg movie called Why We Hate. It's going to be a series. I believe it's going to be HBO in the fall. Mm-hmm. So if you watch it, it'll probably be limited edition, like five episodes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Why We Hate by Spielberg. That's Bart and I playing on that. So so now all of a sudden we are doing some recording of movies and stuff, but all the stuff that you were referring to, it was just on camera.
Oh, how cool though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your involvement with Jazz Harp Records. Now, is this a label that you've established for yourself, or are you actually in retail selling records?
It's just for myself. When we made that first CD, it just was, I needed a name and it just made sense. Well, you know what? My girlfriend of mine called me up and she said, you know what? She's a harpist. She said, I have Jazz Harp license plate on my car, JAZHARP. She said, I don't play jazz. Do you want the license plate? I said, yes, I'll take it. So that became kind of my theme throughout life, is Jazz Harp Records. That's kind of who I am, I guess.
Yeah, but now with that license plate, you're on the road to diva-dom, whether you like it or not.
Oh, I know. But you know what? Now people can find me. I have to be real. I can't speed. I have to be really good to people on the road.
Oh, sure.
You know, it's really tough on the freeways in LA.
So what's an average show day like for you? Do you have a pre-show ritual that you have to, observe? I mean, in my case, before I go on with a broadcast, I just have to be left alone for 20 minutes leading up to that. I have to have all my ducks in a row, and I can't have people coming to me with, oh, what about this? What about that? It's like, no, I need my quiet time. I need my focus. What's it like for you?
Yeah, I really just kind of step right in. I can go 10 minutes putting makeup and hair and just go on stage, and it just, especially if I have my band with me, it's become, we're just a family, and we just get to play. We get to play. And because it's jazz, I get to express the way I'm feeling at the moment. If it were a classical concert, it would be a whole different ballgame. I would need to be left alone. I'd need to see the music in my head, because I've been there. When I graduated Temple, my recital was, it was nerve-wracking. So I know that feeling, but I don't have that now. I can't wait to play.
Oh, that's always a good feeling, right?
Yeah.
So what's next for you, my dear?
I don't know. Right now we're working on this movie, and a lot of the budgets have come way down for the festivals and even the street fairs and the things I used to love to do. And in many cases, there's a pay to play. Are you familiar with pay to play?
I've heard of it, but tell me about it.
Well, I remember there was a great art fair that they had in the Palm Springs area that we used to do. And I remember I hadn't heard in a while from the woman that booked it. And when I called, I found out that she had left and that there was a new person in charge of booking music. And I introduced myself to her and I said, hey, we did the art affairs, 5 years in a row, a couple years back. May I send you a package, my press kit? And she said, sure. She said, let me ask you, she said, would you be interested in purchasing a booth to sell your CDs? And I thought to myself, I said, my father-in-law loves the desert, the Palm Springs, the heat. I thought that might be really fun to come out for the weekend and take the booth, and we'll all work the booth, and then, we'll play and blah, blah, blah. So I said to her, I said, you know what, I would love to consider it. Please send me some information. So a couple of times I got the information on the booth rental. It was something like a weekend rate of $500 or something. And I thought, okay, you have to sell a lot of CDs to make that up. But this, again, I'm thinking of it as a little family vacation. And she wasn't answering my calls when I was asking what the budget was for the musicians. So when I finally got her on the phone, she said, well, and keep in mind, this is a couple years back, this is my experience. She said, if you purchase the booth, you may play on the stage for free. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I was really kind of shocked that they wouldn't pay their musicians. And then when I relayed the story to a couple of my musician friends, they said, where have you been? This is called pay to play. This has been around for a long time, for a couple years now. And I just got kind of turned off. I think if I played the flute, I'd have a different experience of just popping on the stage and playing and popping off the stage. Mm-hmm. The harp is a big deal. We bring a full Bose system with us, which is 5 components. It's just, I got a little, I pulled back. So I don't know. I don't know if it's still changed. If there's anybody out there that has some leads for me, let me know. But I was just really turned off by that whole experience. And
I don't blame you.
It's just, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. And I get it. And for someone starting out, it's a great experience and great exposure. I'm at the point where I would really enjoy, I love playing, but I do like getting paid too. Sure. And I think I call it a schlep fee. It's funny. My whole life, people said to me, I'd be in an elevator at the Ritz-Carlton, and in the elevator, someone would say, "Oh my gosh, don't you wish you played the flute?" And I would look at them like they had 3 heads, and I'd say, "No, of course not. The harp is the most beautiful instrument in the world." And the day I turned 40, I automatically just turned to them and said, "Yes, I do." It's got some, that's the disadvantage, is getting it there and the schlep involved. But I mean, I've been doing it for years. If I have a different car, something else goes out of whack on my body. Putting it in my Land Cruiser, it's like it's a done deal. This is just what I do, But sure. That's the only muscles I have, is how to put it in my Land Cruiser. So.
Well, this has been wonderful, my dear. I cannot thank you enough for having this wee chat with us here. Where can our listeners find out more information on how to find your music?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, our YouTube channel is Jazz Harp 1 with 1 Z, J, like my license plate, JAZHARP1. And then the website is jazzharprecords.com with 1 Z, JAZHARP records.com. And I so appreciate you, Will. Thank you so much. Your questions were amazing. I just feel like I've known you forever. You're wonderful.
Well, then you get to know me, and then, complications set in. So, yeah.
I could have said the same thing. You stole my line.
We're at peak right here. It's all downhill from here. So
that's right. We better stop while we're ahead.
I love it. Thank you so much, my dear. I appreciate you being on the show.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Take care now. We've been having ourselves a rare old chat from the interview archives with jazz harpist extraordinaire Laurie Andrews. And a quick programming note, we will be devoting all 5 shows in the month of July to making good on this backlog we have of archive interviews that were delayed due to the COVID pandemic lockdown of our River West Radio studio. So, we're just, making up for some lost time here. And, oh my God, what a lot of fun. Let's dive back into the music here, head out the door with our feet on the floor with yet another glorious tune from Laurie. Here she is with a glorious tune here. This was entitled No Strings Attached. And guess what? Only here, Active Culture, River West Radio. that was all kinds of smooth. Very, very tasty. And what can I tell you, my friends? It's only here, Active Culture, River West Radio. We just heard an amazing tune from jazz harpist Laurie Andrews, and oh my lord, very, very tasty. We're going to be heading out the door in just about 50 seconds from now. But before we do, just want to remind our listeners again that we're going to be devoting the month of July to archive interviews. And when I speak of the archive interviews these days, I'm talking about the interviews that did not see the light of day or get broadcast due to the pandemic lockdown. Our studios were shut down and just nothing was being processed here through Studio C. And I was doing a show literally in my living room with the laptop, thanks to Zavla Play, for about 18 months. What can I tell you? So, yeah, by all means, join us next week. We've got another archive interview and another inductee into our Women Fiddlers series. That's going to be a fiddler by the name of Delaney Stockley. And that's coming up next week here on Active Culture. And once again, our thanks to Laurie Andrews, a stellar guest and a lot of fun. And it's all here, Active Culture, River West Radio.